On today's episode of Whistle Talk, we're joined by Raymond Tate III, an elite field judge officiating in the Southeastern Conference with years of experience at the highest level, including the XFL Championship and the Goodyear Cotton Bowl. Raymond provides an inside look at the demanding role of a deep wing official. Get ready for an insightful discussion on proper mechanics, pre-game preparation, and the keys to success on the field. That's coming up next on Whistle Talk.
Are you a football fan? Have you ever found yourself wondering what in the world was that ref thinking? Well, Mike D, the referee, is here to help. Join me on Whistle Talk as I talk to professionals on the field and in the booth to help you understand what is going on inside the mind of a football official. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am back here on Whistle Talk. Tonight I got a special guest. I have a gentleman from the SEC Conference. We got some big games going on here. Mr. Raymond Tate. Raymond, thank you very much for joining us tonight here on Whistle Talk. Appreciate you coming on. So, Raymond, just to give a little background of him, he is going into his third or fourth year in the SEC. Third year?
Going into fourth.
Fourth year in the SEC. And Ray is a field judge. So, for those that don't know, the field judge position is basically, we generally refer to it as a deep wing. So Ray is going to be down the sideline, and he's going to be anywhere in the high school level between 20 and 22 yards. And I'm going to let Raymond go on a little bit more in depth about that as we dive into it. But Raymond, if you don't mind just introducing yourself, I appreciate all our listeners know who we got here tonight.
Yeah. So yeah, Raymond Tate, I'm a field judge in the SEC. Just wrapped up my third year before that. The two-step with Conference USA, and then I was with the MEAC before that.
Okay. And now you got some professional experience under your belt too, as well, correct?
Yep. Yeah. I worked the XFL last year, and then I'm working the UFL.
Very nice. Raymond happens to be buddies with a previous guest I had on here, Mike V. So Mike was the one who kind of set up this introduction. So I appreciate you again, Mike, for not only being on the show, but for hooking us up with another great guest. We were talking about you are now working in the UFL, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I work in the UFL.
And how's that going this year? You guys are in mid-season right now.
Mid-season, I got my next game coming up this week. It's been going well, man. It's been a tremendous opportunity to just kind of to get to learn some of those philosophies and have the opportunity to kind of cut your teeth on a new rule book. So it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
Good stuff. So now diving back in, before we got cut out, you are a deep wing official. Explain to our listeners just exactly what a deep wing is.
Yeah. So the deep wing, we sit really in that defensive backfield on the sideline, probably about. I think he said high school is 18 to 22. I know that's true for us here in Texas. I think at the Division I level, or at the collegiate level, we talk about, I think it's 20 to 24 yards, or it might be 18 to 22. And we're really keyed in on that our initial key, I would say, is the outside receiver, that receiver number one.
Okay.
Yeah, I know we don't usually want to use the word key any longer. We want to make sure we talk about our area of responsibility, but that's my first responsibility is that outside receiver.
So now for everybody else that's out there, now when we're referring to it, we're going to count outside in from the sideline in for the number of receivers. Pre-snap, you're looking down at that number one wide receiver, first wide receiver in from the sideline. So if you get a trips formation, 3 receivers on your side, your focus is on number one still.
Yep, that's good. That's absolutely true. It helps, I would say, as a field judge or as a deep official to know. I think where to the point you said, I think it helps for us to know like what everyone else's responsibilities are. So I know what 2 and 3 are doing, but number one is where I start.
Okay, so now you're focusing in or looking in pre-snap at number one. What's going through your mind pre-snap? What are you thinking about? What are the things that you're taught to focus on before the ball's even snapped?
Yeah, so I end every play, which starts every play with my pre-snap routine, and so let's say I got that out the way, and now I'm keying in on my responsibility. I'm thinking about things like where we are in the game, where my receivers lined up at. Um, that helps me kind of identify what routes are going to be available to him at that particular spot. I'm making sure I understand what defense the defense is showing in. Is my corner going to be in man press, or are they running a soft zone? With those types of things, so I can know what I can expect, or I can kind of anticipate when that contact was going to happen, or when that potential contact is going to happen. I think those are the things that I'm really keying in on at that particular moment. So yeah, my first responsibilities. Start every play, like I end every play with that pre-snap routine. So let's say we've gotten that out the way, and when we're talking about just as I'm keying in on my receiver, I'm taking note of where he's lined up on the field. That kind of lets me know, or helps me understand what routes are available to him. Keying in on what type of defense the defense might be in, based on where we are on the field, down in distance, those types of things. All that's running through my mind as I'm keying in on my first responsibility.
Okay. So now, and we kind of skipped over this a little bit. What are you and your crew talking about pregame? So now, before the game even starts, so you got say a Chip Kelly run and gun type of team, as opposed to SEC. You get an Alabama, which is going to kind of try to play old school smash mouth. Well, they're opening it up a little bit more too these days,
Sure,
but
yeah, but they still want to run the ball. They still want to put it down the road. What are we talking about? We talk about, I guess we will talk about styles. We will talk about, with this offense, you get, their run to pass split is 60-40, so you can expect more passes. They like a short intermediate pass offense, so make sure that we are, that you're, not necessarily more locked in on those first 5-7 yards than anything else, but just understand that that's probably where you can anticipate, or at least expect, some of that contact to occur in this type of offense, because when you're talking about contact fouls in the defensive backfield, typically they're going to come at the break. So that break on the intermediate pass offense is going to come between 5 and 7 yards, those types of things. We'll talk about that, like that type of stuff, but that's really about it, right? You want to talk about enough to give you a level of awareness, but not as much as to where you are trying to anticipate fouls, or you are keying in on somebody because that might be something that you think they're weak in terms of maybe blocking downfield or holding in the defensive backfield, those types of things. So we just want a level of awareness. That's about as far deep as we're going to go when it comes to talking about teams' style of offense and defense.
Now, that's a great point you bring up about not going too deep into it, because I know I'll talk with other officials and hey, I'm working A versus B this weekend. Hey, Mike, you got to watch out on A. Number one, he's a dirty player, and this, that, and the other thing. And I've mentioned a number of times, in our shoes, we're human. We make mistakes. We don't know if, when this official had team A, if number one was just having a really bad day in their life and they were chippy that day. So trying not to have those pregame biases in your head does definitely make a big difference. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I typically like to stay away from that conversation when people say, "Hey, well, 55 is a dirty player," and those types of things, because that really gets into kind of like targeting targeting players and stuff like that, and that's unfair, right? So really good point. He could have just been having a bad day, right? His girlfriend just broke up with him right before the game, type of thing. Who knows? It could be anything. So I agree. I do think that. Now, I don't want to be oblivious to patterns, right? He's gotten 4 UNSs over the past 5 games. Okay, I'm not.
No.
You don't want to be oblivious to patterns, but absolutely. Hey, I just had so-and-so last week, and, he's a dirty player. To be careful with that. I agree with you.
Yeah, so that reputations do precede themselves with some people. Like you said, the 4 and 5 unnecessary fouls and stuff like that. That's one thing. That is something you are going to want to keep that individual on your radar. But if they had one bad game, I mean, it happens to all of us. We've all had a bad game one way or another.
Yeah.
So now you go through your pregame meeting with the rest of your crew. You all head out onto the field now. You're in Jordan-Hare Stadium, and you've got 97,000 people screaming and yelling at you. What is that atmosphere like? Like, what are you thinking about as you're walking out onto the field in games like that?
I think one of the very best pieces of advice I got when I got to the SEC is, man, take a moment and enjoy it. We're officials, so every time I throw my foul, my flag, or don't throw my flag, 50% of the people are going to be upset with me. So if you can't deal with not being loved or not being liked or not being disagreed with, this probably isn't the place for you, right? So you walk out there with 97,000 people. That's just something special. It really is. So you just kind of like take it in. But honestly, man, once that's put to leather at 15 minutes on the first quarter, it's you really don't hear it. You don't hear it. You don't pay attention to it. You lock in. But yeah, it's something special. I'll tell you that.
That's great stuff, and hopefully someday I get to experience that myself. But if not, I'm going to be going game by game and still enjoying the Friday night lights that I'm working right now too. So it's still a lot of fun. I'll tell you this, Mike,
I do Friday night lights. I did Friday night lights here in Dallas. Start my career off, and there's nothing like it, man. So I understand there's nothing like Friday night lights. I'm not poo-pooing on that either. That's something special too, man. I get that.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I do got to say, going to the Iron Bowl is on my checklist of games that I do want to catch in my lifetimes. But I'm good with being up in the crowd for that one.
That's on my list too, Mike.
There you go. Very nice. So now, when you're talking pregame stuff like that, how is it now with the college game? I know we're having issues at the high school level, like equipment-wise and stuff like that. Is that stuff that you guys go around and kind of patrol? For those that can't see, Raymond's giving a little chuckle right now.
How do we deal with that? We deal with it as our assigner tells us to. I don't think that it is a secret across the nation that officials from the Division I level to the high school level don't want to deal with a kid who doesn't want to cover his knees up. That's not a secret. We want to deal with actual football stuff. I think that's something that administrators and coaches and all that good stuff, if it's that important to them to put in the rule book, I think that's something that they should be able to administer. That's not something I think that we want to deal with on the field. But there's a lot of different things in the rule book that I don't think that we want to deal with on the field, and so we'll do it. We will address it. The rule is in the rule book, and we'll address it as the rules tell us to, unless our coordinator or our coaches tell us otherwise. And so that's the best way I can put it.
Completely understandable. I'm not going to be surprised if we start seeing at the college level some of the what are they called in the NFL? The dress police or the uniform police. Now we got the NIL stuff.
And to tell you the truth, Mike, with the NIL stuff, I'll say I had a very interesting case early in the season. I think either last year or 2 years ago. But we had a particular player who had a very extravagant tattoo on his leg. He had a leg sleeve. And I mean, as a young man, I thought it was really fire. I thought it was dope. But because he had the leg sleeve, he wanted to show it off. And so he would really roll up his pants and they looked like biker shorts. And so we would address it. We would talk it. We're on national television. Hey, this is week 2. We're on national television. And if we see this on national television in week 2, like, these officials just aren't doing their job. So we're doing what we can to address it. And then so probably like in the third quarter, he finally tells me, he was like, man, listen, I can't do anything about this. This is tied to an NIL deal. So he got an NIL deal with the tattoo shop or whoever, I don't know. And that's tied to that, right? So like now, as an official, I'm messing up his money, telling him to do it, and he's not going to do it. It's a really interesting thing that's going to happen that I think it's an interesting conundrum at the stakeholders' hands with that.
That,
of course, as an official, we'll do what they tell us to, but I think they are in an interesting conundrum with that.
Yeah, and that's something I never even thought about. With you're taking away their advertising.
I agree. Neither had I. You're taking away their free advertising. Yep.
That definitely interesting.
I don't want to be in those rooms, in those rooms that have to make those decisions, because I get it. It's a hard decision.
Absolutely. So now, backtracking up again, we started talking about some of your pre-snap responsibilities, and you're focusing in now. So you got your game started, you got your kickoff going. So now we're into the gameplay. Your first responsibility, are you guys counting up players? Are you guys communicating with each other? Whose responsibility does that fall on?
So my deep three, right? So when I say deep three, I'm talking back judge, field judge, side judge. So my deep three, we will count the defense, and the offense. The other officials handle the offense. There's another group that handles the offense, but we're counting the defense, and we do our best to communicate that amongst each other every down.
Mm-hmm.
I know when I was coming up in high school, I would reach out and I would tell my line judge, "Hey, I got 11," or I tell my back judge, or as a back judge, I tell my line judge, "Hey, I got 11." I can, you can hear me. Um, as you continue to go up and these stadiums get louder and they get more full, there's no need in you even trying to talk. And then we're not going to use our O2O to let them know that, right? So we've got our hand signals to communicate that we've got 11. But that's truly, yeah, we got our hand signals to communicate that we have 11.
Yeah, so that's one thing. Even at the big high school games, I mean, we in New Jersey, we do have O2Os for our high school games now too. So we do have
Sure.
the communication, but we try to stay off it as much as possible, especially pre-snap, especially when the snap is imminent. We don't want to be communicating and taken away from our focus. It's more so going to be for dead ball officiating and things like that, and communicating with each other. So there is still a lot of hand signals going on, and wristbands. Again, I'm an umpire, so the finger wraps and all the other different things and the down indicators that people don't understand. And heck, I still see people old school with the rubber bands on their hands. So
yeah. I still got guys on my crew in the SEC with it, wear the rubber bands. I'll say this though. I think I always tell a lot of my young guys, right? Like the counting. If you don't get to communicate it to your crew member, that's okay, because you really need to be doing that for you, right? Your pre-snap routine is for you. We communicated to our crew members from like an accountability perspective, but if you're not able, and that's kind of what I tell my deep three as well, like my back judge, like I count and I get it out the way, because a lot of times we like to say, well, let's all count and break the huddle at 3, or when they break the huddle, we'll signal. Sometimes I'm not thinking that way in the middle of the game, in the heat of the game, in the third quarter. You know what I mean? So just make sure you're doing it for you, because that's really all it's about.
And one thing that I found that I personally do, I'm in charge of counting up the offense in our system in New Jersey. I'm looking at substitutes. Play ends, how many kids are breaking the huddle, how many, especially I used to be a short wing, so I was on the sideline. How many people are coming to my sideline? Is 2 players coming off and 2 players going on, or are there 4 players going on? How many people are coming off on that huddle? It's a lot of times that I'm not counting to see if I have 11. I'm counting to see that I got 2 on, 2 off, and I'm kind of putting my fingers down, things like that, to myself. It just remind myself.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point, Mike. I think at the start of the series, I only get 11 when I can. And, with the advent of these speed up, these hurry up offenses and these quick offenses, man, you're not going to get the opportunity every time to count 11. So you're 100% correct. Once I count 11 at the top of the series, unless I get another big break, maybe it's a first down and we've stopped play, or, I got a timeout or something, or incomplete pass or something. After that, I'm really just counting subs. I agree. That's a really good point.
So now going back, your pre-snap responsibilities, you're focusing in on the number 1 receiver. Is anything changing for you when you're getting some of these funky type of formations? Say you get a closed formation where you don't have a wide guy on your side, you just have a tight end to your side. Or you get a formation where you get maybe a diamond formation where you got quads, 4 receivers on one side. So how do things like that change for you, your mindset?
Yeah, I think that kind of leads into why I said that we don't use the word key any longer. We have our area, we have our responsibilities, right? Our primary responsibilities. And so as a field judge, if I don't have a wideout and I only have a tight end, he's still the number 1 receiver on that side of the field. So he's still my responsibility. If I have quads to the other side and a back, and all I've got is a tackle, I'm still a football official and I need to go find work, right? So with that being said, I'm going to key in on my tackle. You'd be hard pressed to see me throw a hold, but I'd be down on a chop block, or I'd be down on anything from a safety perspective with that tackle if it happens immediately at the snap until something comes into my area, into my zone. But yeah, if you don't have a wideout, you're not stealing money for that play. You need to go find work.
Absolutely. You kind of sound like me as an old offensive line coach. I used to teach my guys, if you're not blocking air, you're finding somebody to go do your job.
Go do something.
Yep. Make sure you're backing up your teammates and helping everybody out on that.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Now, does anything change for you guys in different zones in the field? So, say in the red zone or coming out, anything different? Because in high school, we do flip flop some responsibilities when we're basically inside the 5-yard line going in. So things like that. Does anything like that change for you guys in the college level?
No, nothing changes. What we will do, or what we will say, is that we'll stick with our keys a little bit longer. And again, we're still using that term, right? But we'll stick with our eligible receivers a little bit longer, right? Because everything happens a little bit quicker in the red zone, right? So we don't flip flop any responsibilities or anything like that, but we do want to stay tied to our eligibles a little bit longer because routes tend to go a little bit more horizontal than vertical, right? So the field condenses, things get a little bit more murky. Stay with your guy a little bit longer.
So now, with that, is it still your responsibility if you're getting a rub route, if you're getting a little offensive pass interference on people possibly setting a pick or things like that, or are we looking more towards the short wing for that call?
I would say if it happens in your area, it's still yours, right? It's absolutely yours, right? The short answer to your question is it's still mine, right? But I can understand why people might get a little bit confused. Like when we get to that downside in the field, like it's right in front of the line judge. Should I stay off of it as a field judge? Absolutely not. If it's your key, it's your receiver, it's in your area, you see the foul, you are a football official.
Mm-hmm.
So you throw the flag.
So now, and again, I apologize. I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you here. I'm thinking back to my coaching days. As a defensive back, I used to coach the cornerbacks and whatnot, and we used to teach our cornerbacks, if one is crossing the field, snap your head across and expect somebody to be coming back to you, some type of crossing route.
Yeah.
Mechanics-wise, are you guys kind of thinking the same thing? If your receiver, your number one key, starts going across on a drag or some type of over route, are you looking to try to catch somebody coming back to you?
Earlier in the session, I think I talked about I want to know like where we are in the game, down and distance, those types of things. The other part of that overarching idea is being able to think football, like situational football, but just thinking football, right? Any great offensive coordinator, if he's clearing a space, he's clearing it for a reason, and that's to fill it in with something different. And so if you are expecting of that, or if you are aware of that, you don't get surprised when you got a wheel route that comes into your area right at the pylon because you're at the 20-yard line and your wide receiver went clear across the field, and you got a wheel route from a running back from the backfield. You have no idea what happened, and the safety just lays him out in front of you. If you understand that that the offensive job is to clear space so that you can get someone else into that space, you are aware of that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. Now, me as an umpire, I hate the mesh route.
Yeah, you do. You should.
Yeah, and for the listeners out there, the mesh route is where you got basically two guys crossing right in the middle of the field, and they tend to kind of use me as their landmark. So
they use you as a pick, man.
Yeah, that's smart football. I can't take anything away from them in that aspect.
Yeah.
So now, Raymond, let's talk a little run game stuff. Now we're talking a little pass game here. Let's talk a little run game. Okay. You got a sweep that comes down to your sideline and say goes for a 6-yard gain, player gets knocked out of bounds. Where are you now in that scenario?
Oh, I am still 20 yards off the ball. He gets knocked out of bounds. I am hustling. I'm hustling tail to get in there and get him out of that bench area. If it's the opposite bench, if it's his bench, I'm getting the person who knocked him out of bounds out of that bench.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you're looking to do some dead ball officiating that aspect?
Absolutely, man. I think one of the things that they think about us as field judges and side judges is that we're all athletic, and that's really what they're hiring. Like they hire athletic people on the deep flanks, and I don't mean any one specific group. I mean typically when you're looking for a field judge, you're looking for somebody athletic, or a side judge, you're looking for someone athletic for that reason. And looking for younger guys, they do those types of things. Irregardless, that's your job, right? Is to get in there. The short flanks have so much to do. Lord, don't have them go and dig out the dead ball and the ball carrier as well. They got the spot. They had the rule on holding. They had the rule on all this other stuff. Please go earn your money. as a deep flank.
So now, consequently, now you got a long run. Guy breaks one for maybe a 60-yard run, but they didn't score. They were on their own 20-yard line. They break one for 60 yards. What are you doing on a run like that, on a play like that?
I'm doing my best to maintain that optimal viewing distance of him being 10 to 12 yards, me being 10 to 12 yards ahead of him. But these kids get faster and faster, and I see them get older and older. So, that's my job. That is my hope. That is what I'm looking to do, is to keep that optimal viewing distance of 10 to 12 yards ahead of them. I'm watching for any type of illegal activities ahead of the runner. I don't have any spot responsibility, so when he goes down, just doing some dead ball officiating. Hopefully, just with my eyes as I'm backing out to the 20-yard spot from that dead ball spot.
Okay. So now, let's just say your short wing, your partner, your short wing kind of gets tied up, had to backtrack a little bit and clear out, and they're a little bit late coming to the spot of the ball. How are you guys working together to try to? Are you trying to help them out with getting a spot or anything like that, even if it's verbally or O to O's possibly come in that aspect, or are they going to rely on their opposite side?
I think I'm going to say on a run play, I'm going to say 90% of the time, I am not going to help with that spot. If he runs out of bounds and my short flank gets caught up, we do a really good job of cross field mechanics on that. Mm-hmm. And those types of things. That's just not what I would not go and get that spot. Pass play a little bit different, but on a run play, I definitely wouldn't help with that spot.
Okay. Now, why pass play a little bit different? I kind of have an idea, but just for the listeners, does the ball tend to go a little bit faster than the runners?
Absolutely. That's exactly it, man. On the pass play, the ball tends to go a little bit faster, and a lot of times they'll go airborne, right? So again, because we, from a football perspective, I can have a run play and a pass play in the same play, right? So if I have a pass that is a 20-yard pass and he runs for 30 yards, I think that's the same exact thing as a run play. It is a run play, right? But if I have a pass play where the ball is in the air for 50 yards, he goes up to get it, and he comes down between the 17 and the 18, and my line judge is 60 yards behind the play, I don't expect him to have that he has a really good eye, right?
Yep.
But let me just help him. Let me just help him on that if I can. Let me help him help the crew on that, especially if it's in that window between the numbers and the sideline. It's right where I'm at. I'm gonna come and get that spot.
Okay. Yep, that's good stuff there. And like you said, you're helping the crew out. You always want to have those crew savers. Don't want anybody looking bad on that. Absolutely. So we're gonna talk a little defensive side now.
Yeah.
Predominantly, what would you say? Kind of lead in. What would you say your number one flag is that you're throwing a flag for in a game?
My number one flag that I'm going to throw in the game. I guess I think you're asking me to say defensive pass interference.
Possibly.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think I throw defensive pass interference nearly as much as I think that I thought I would have when I got to this level.
Okay.
They're really, really good. They're really good. So yeah, I think the number one foul that I had last year was maybe offensive holding. I think I had 6 of those.
And I kind of led you in there. I don't know if it was deceivingly, but that seems to be the mindset that a lot of people think, that you're back there just looking for pass interference.
Oh, one of the first things my mentor told me was one of my first mentors. One of the first things he told me was the fouls that we throw are typically 15-yarders, right? With the exception of maybe like a DH or offensive hold. But I think we throw big fouls, right? So you need to really know what you're doing and know what you're looking for. It's not just DPI, right? Like, typically a lot of our fouls are going to be 15-yarders or 10-yarders. Legal block in the back, offensive hold, DHs, and a lot of times they come with automatic first yards, first downs. So you got to be good and be on the money from a DPI perspective.
Yeah, you can go 3.5 quarters without seeing anything, and all of a sudden you drop the flag once, and it potentially could be a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. You go 3.5 quarters without seeing nothing, and then you have a tight pylon play for a potential score.
Yep.
Yeah, you got to be locked in.
Yeah, every single play. You never know in this crazy sport what the heck is going to happen.
Yeah.
So now one last thing, and then we'll take a quick pause. Mechanics wise, how are you and your short wing working together on those pass plays that you say inbounds, out of bounds, ball control, didn't have control, things like that? What are different techniques that you guys work together with?
If you're talking about catch, you're talking about catch, no catch at the sideline.
Correct. Yes.
We both, as an official, you can only rule on what you see as an official. But with that being said, we both are going to work the entire play, but that's going to leave somebody out, right? So if I got a deep play and I got an over the shoulder pass that the receiver's going to catch facing me, my short flank won't be able to see the possession of the ball, but he will be able to catch feet, right? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And we'll be able to break that down and say, we'll be able to come together and talk and kind of piece it together if need be. But yeah, we're both going to work that entire play. But as an official, you can only rule on what you see.
Correct. Yeah, and that's something that we as a crew we do talk about between our short and deep wings. If you don't see the ball, find the feet. If you can't see the feet, find the ball. You're gonna always be able to find one or the other. If not, you might be able to see both. But that's where the communication with you.
It's called football, right? So feet ball. You want to go feet first, foot first. You know what I mean? Like when I'm ruling on that play on the sideline, was it catch no catch? If he didn't get his feet in, I don't need to worry about if he got the ball.
Correct.
So I need to always check the feet first. All right. So we're both going to check the feet, and then whichever one of us gets the ball is going to get the ball.
Now, actually, I'm just thinking about this now. At the college game, you only need to have 1 foot inbounds without the second foot hitting out of bounds first for it to be a completed pass. What about in the UFL? What's the rule with that?
Definitely a 2-foot league.
Okay.
Definitely a 2-foot league. Got to have 2 in. I laugh about that because we had a little inside joke on my crew after the first week. But yeah, definitely a 2-foot league.
Okay. Good stuff. All right, so at this time, we're going to take a short pause, and when we get back, Raymond and I, we're going to dive into basically all officials' nemesis, the kicking game, and how as a deep wing official, how the kicking game likes to play tricks with us. We will be right back after a short break, so stay tight, and we'll be right back.
Awesome.
Hey, Whistle Talk fans, are you enjoying what you're listening to? Be sure to hit the like button so that you can join us every week as we break down the nuances of officiating that often go unnoticed. We want to hear from you, the passionate fans who make our game so special. Like what you hear? Hit the like button and let us know. Have a burning question or a hot take? Drop us a comment below to join the conversation.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with Raymond Tate from the SEC, deep wing official in the SEC. And before we left, Raymond and I were talking about how when we get back, we're going to talk about the arch nemesis, the plays where the craziest things can and usually do occur, and that is the kick game. Kickoffs, extra points, punt plays, different things like that. So, Raymond, what is your role on kickoff? What do you have pre-snap or pre-kick, I should say, on kickoff?
Yeah, so pre-kick, I want to make sure. I think the biggest thing for me is that we kick off with 11 on both sides. There's other things that the mechanics manual will tell you, and I think that we're keying in on that. Like the kicking team needs to make sure that they get into the numbers. That's between our back judge and umpire, but sometimes I'll help with that. Those types of things. But the biggest thing for me is that we're going to kick off with 11 on both sides. I'm not going to let that kickoff happen if both teams don't have 11.
Now, what about positioning-wise? Where are you located for the kickoff?
Yeah, I'm at the back of the white. And typically that's where I am for every play. You might see me creep up to the middle of the white, but that's about as far up as I go, and that's uncomfortable, right? During regular plays. But I start every kickoff at the back of the white. That's also another thing that's really important, is to make sure that we clean that sideline up, right? So I will say at this level, the coaches are really good, especially on that play. Play about staying back out of your way. But that comes with coaching, talking to them and coaching them up and making sure they understand. So at the high school level, I would make sure on my way back up the field, I would be telling my coaches, like, hey guys, get back, help players help the coaches out, get them back as I'm running back up the field for the next kickoff. So just kind of That's good.
Yeah, I got to say, it's probably a little bit different in the SEC with just how the sidelines are even painted, as opposed to when you were working the Friday nights and you got some grounds guy who, I mean, I've seen some lines that look like they've had a little bit too much to drink as they were painting the lines going up and down the sideline. So you do want to make sure that area is definitely clear.
Yeah.
Now, are you on K side or are you on our side? Do you have a line of scrimmage for the kick game?
Am I on the kicking team side or on the receiving team?
Yes. Yeah. So
I'm on the receiving team's restraining line.
Okay.
Sorry, I misunderstood your question. Yeah, I'm on the receiving team's restraining line.
So you're 10 yards from where the kickoff is, and you're making sure the ball crosses that 10 yards.
Yeah. So I mean, I make sure that the ball comes off the tee properly. I want to make sure I know how the ball comes off the tee. Let me say it that way. Make sure I know how the ball comes off the tee. And then, as the kicking team passes by me, I don't move until they pass by me, the kicking team. And then I will saunter 10 yards or so down the field. Not a sprint, not a run, not a jog. I saunter about 10 yards. And then I watch my area of responsibility.
Okay. Now, you said you're watching the ball come off the tee. In the college game, are pop-up kicks allowed in the college game?
Yeah, they're allowed. Yeah, you don't really see them a lot like I thought we used to, but yeah, pop-up kicks are allowed.
And what about when the ball is kicked directly into the ground, where it's grounded right away and then pops up? Are those still legal?
Yeah, so what's important there is that I know, when I say I want to know how the ball comes off the tee, is that way I know that if it comes off the tee, if he kicks it immediately into the ground, one hop, the receiving team still can legally signal for a fair catch and gain their protection. On two hops, that is not allowed. They get no protection.
See, now in the high school level, one pop into the ground, and then we're told if it goes over basically 6 feet, we're killing it right then and there because they're trying to get rid of that pop-up kick, that grounded hard pop-up kick.
If the ball goes higher than 6 feet, is that what you say?
Yep. So if it gets grounded right away.
Wow.
Yep. If it's an immediately spiked off the tee into the ground, because in the high school level, so now in Texas, I don't think you guys are NFHS in Texas.
No,
the NFHS. Yep. So the NFHS rules, they kind of took that away because they were trying to get away from that pop-up kick for safety purposes.
Well, let me ask you this, Mike. How do you know what 6 feet is?
That is a fan question. You don't. It's honestly, it is a judgment call. I'm 6'3" now. Yeah. Not now. I've not always been 6'3", but I'm 6'3". I am now behind the kicker, and that is my number one focus point on kickoff, is to make sure that if it is grounded, that it's not going higher than what I'm perceiving to be 6 feet. So I'm going to give that gray area, but basically if it's going over the heads of the players, I don't know any 7-footers that are really playing in high school ball in New Jersey right now. So I'm gonna go with the benefit of the doubt with that. But yeah, that's our rule to try to look at that, and it's a tough one.
I think it's incumbent on rule makers at all levels to make rules that can be adjudicated with some level of, not necessarily ease, but with some level of consistency. There's no way that I think that you all could be consistent with that. And I don't think that's just the only rule. And I'm not trying to rag on NFHS or anything like that, because we have them all over. We have those types of rules all over the college football rule book too. So I just wanted to say that. I think that's really unfair to you guys.
I could say the first year that it was brought in, it was difficult, but I think then the coaches kind of became more aware of it, and I couldn't tell you the last time that I've actually seen it occur intentionally incur, I should say, because there are times where the kicker shanks the ball and it happens, and I'm not going to kill the play on something like that. Where so high school level, you got kids that, hey, who can kick today? Come on out there, go for it. And all of a sudden, it's an onside kick when it wasn't supposed to be an onside kick.
Right. That's fair. That's fair.
So you using a little judgment in that aspect too. But again, like you were talking about, kind of knowing the situation, there are times where you are going to try a surprise onside kick. There are times where it's late in the game and everybody knows what's coming. So
Yeah.
you're definitely going to go within in that aspect. So now getting back to the kick game, the punt plays. You guys are deep on the punts. How are you guys positioning yourself on the punts? Where are you in relation to the punt returners themselves? Different things like that.
I am typically I line up 15 yards behind my punt receiver. I line up 15 yards behind my punt receiver. I was going to say I don't know what the mechanics manual says because I really don't, but I'm always lined up at 15. And I do that. There's a reason why I do that. And so for me, let me say this: the mechanics in football are very much an art. There's other sports where the mechanics are a science. You're supposed to be somewhere based upon where something else is, and based upon this is what's going on in the game. But in football, I view them much more of an art, right? So you want to make sure that you are in a place to where you want to minimize whatever level of movement, so that you can maximize your eye discipline. And still maintain the level of the angle that you need to, right? So I think 15 yards behind the punt receiver does that for me, because very, very rarely is the punt receiver going to not move because the punt came directly to him. Mm-hmm. Once that ball is off of the foot, he's going to gauge where that ball is going, and then he's going to move. Sometimes he's going to move backwards. At 15 yards, very rarely do I have to move backwards with him. So I can still maintain a level of stationary positioning, keying in on my key that's 70 yards down the field or 60 yards down the field to ensure that my gunner is free from foul. But that's typically where I stand. I think if we are anywhere, depending on where I am, depending on who my punter is, if we're on the 50 and in, I'm on the goal line.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep. So you're ruling for any type of touchback or anything like that?
Correct. Yep.
Now, I know here in New Jersey, we are 6-man crews. And we've gone back and forth with our mechanic of kind of staggering one deep official kind of being in front of the punt returner, other ones being behind the punt returners. You being 15 yards back, what is your partner on the opposite side of the field? Are they also 15 yards back?
Yeah. And so again, like that's why I say it's much more of an art in college football, or not in college football, like in football period, the mechanics are. Because I don't think that he should be keyed off of what I'm doing. Truthfully, I think that he needs to be doing whatever works for him, based upon the mechanics manual. I think there was a school of thought many moons ago that we needed to be on the same yard line just because it was aesthetically pleasing from like a video perspective. But I've always thought that was a farce, a fallacy. So I do what I do. What works for me, and he does the same.
So now the thought process that we've gone back and forth in this state was trying to take away the muff. Who's keying on a muffed ball? Did the returner touch the ball or not, and different things like that, and not being a 7-man crew or not having somebody sitting in center field kind of is blocking our angles from that. So unfortunately for us, it tends to be a dead zone where we are trying to work with each other and help each other out. Me as an umpire, I'm waiting for that wave to pass me by, and then I'm kind of snapping my head back to see if I can possibly help out on that. The one that you have is the fair catch. And who's ruling on the fair catch? Was it a legal fair catch? Did they get their hand up and high enough and make the waves, or was it an illegal fair catch? Different things like that. So this is where it does kind of get a little crazy for us, and different things like that.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
So now you get a kick return. Let's talk about a punt return. You're deep. You're 15 yards behind the returner. No fair catch. They catch the ball and they're going for the return. They're coming down your sideline. What kind of rules do you have and mechanics do you have on a punt return type play?
So these are, I guess, what we would call reverse mechanics. I get these on kick plays. I get these on turnovers. And it's really the only time in the game that I get to get a spot. And I'm excited about that. And I say that tongue in cheek because I don't like getting spots, because we're not trained to get spots, and spots are so very, very important.
Yes.
And so it's something that I will say on punt plays. we do a really good job, especially from our deep flank perspective, of using cross field mechanics because, punt plays are going to be they're really high speed plays, right? Everyone's on 2 feet. That punt returner gets the ball and he's with a head of steam and he's going. So if he's coming up my sideline, there are 11 other, there's 21 other people who are running just as fast, and somebody's going to get knocked out of bounds at a high speed, or he's going to get tackled at a high collision, those types of things. And so I am not really moving, and I'm not following the play like a short flank would on a play from scrimmage. Once he gets probably about 5, 7, probably about 10, 12 yards ahead of me, I'll begin to kind of creep in that direction. But I'm not on a sprint. I'm not even on a fast walk, right? I'm just kind of moving in that direction. Once the ball is dead, is when I'm going to come in and clean up and get the spot. And so I know I just said that spots are really critical, and they are. But on punt plays, because B is getting the ball, very rarely is anyone going to chum over 1 or 2 yards. If I'm off a yard or if I'm off 2, not that big of a deal. If I'm off 7, I might get a little bit of help, or my crossfield might give me a little bit of help. But that's really what we're doing. I'm not really worried about that spot to a yard perspective because I got so many different other things to worry about on a kick play.
Yep, and that's a great point. And I know we always talk about let's start the next series with the ball on a tick and making sure. So if we're 6 inches off, but the nose of the ball is on a yard marker, and we could set the chains on that first series, makes it easier for the coaches, for the players, and for us as the officials. So that initial mark is not as important as, say, 3rd and 2 and a team's going in. So that's definitely something. Now, me being a former short wing, that reverse mechanic sometimes used to catch me off guard because it's always ingrained into us, do not get beat to the goal line. And you being 20 some odd yards deep and with the speed of the game that you have, you're trying to always maintain that cushion that you're talking about. But now all of a sudden, as a short wing, you get a slant play, a short pass play that all of a sudden is picked and taken to the house. I got to be on my horse and try to beat that young 16, 17-year-old buck down to the goal line. And sometimes it wasn't so successful, but that's where the reverse mechanics come into play.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I have, it might have been my first year in the SEC. I was getting beat to the goal line. I wasn't getting beat to the goal line in Conference USA, but in the SEC, man, these kids are otherworldly fast. And so, like if you do it right, you're not you can stay on top of the plays if you do it correctly. But it doesn't take much of a slip. You know what I mean? Like you stay on your key too long, or you stay in your back pedal too long. It doesn't take much of a slip because these kids are, Olympic level fast.
Yeah.
So it's going to, all that to say, like, it's going to happen. And it's not something to like truly beat yourself up about. It's not a mark of success of how well you did officiating the game that night. We talk about not getting beat to the goal line because you just want to make sure that you are in the best place to officiate every play.
Mm-hmm. So now, last thing I want to talk to you about, and I kind of misled you, I should say, before talking about penalties, but it is a penalty that does come with it a little bit of controversy and whatnot. Can you talk about interference? Because typically it is going to come from a deeper official as opposed to the short wing. Not necessarily all the time, but more a majority, I would say, coming from a deep wing. So talk about interference and some things that you're looking for, be it offensive or defensive.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, one of the things that really opened my eyes early on in my career is, and I'm sure that people have heard this, I'm sure that you talk about it, right? But when you really are able to kind of sit with it and have this realization, this level of understanding on the field, it really opens up pass interference for you. When that ball is in the air, everybody has equal rights to the ball, right? And if you can think of it that way, I think that pass interference becomes very, I don't want to say easy because nothing in this game is easy, but I think it becomes, I think the lines between black and white are less blurred. They're looking for, we have our indicators, we have our keys, we have our categories and all that good stuff, right? But if it's not something that's huge, sticks off the map, there's going to be contact and there's going to be some touch and feeling, some grabbing. There's going to be some contact, and you got to be okay with that, right? But once you recognize that defense has just as much of an opportunity and has just as much of a right to that ball as the offense does, I think pass interference kind of opens up a little bit more for you.
Now, how much of a change have you seen in the this is probably about 7-8 years now that it's become popular with that back shoulder fade and interference calls with that?
I'll say, I guess when I was coming through high school and even at the small college level, like you said, that back shoulder fade really came into play with Aaron Rodgers, like in the 2010s and all that good stuff. So like I said, I'm coming through high school and small college at that time. Those quarterbacks weren't as adept at creating or completing that pass yet. So I didn't start seeing a lot of back shoulder fades probably until my later Conference USA years, and definitely now in the SEC when you got these cats that are going, in the first round as quarterbacks. And if, in my personal humble opinion, I think that is probably the most unguardable pass. If it's executed properly, it's probably one of the most unguardable routes that we have in football. So there isn't a lot of opportunity because the defender is unaware of when that ball is coming. If the route is ran properly, because the defender is unaware, he's typically not going to foul, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because it's such a quick release. But what you're going to see more than anything is an offensive pass interference on that back shoulder fade. A lot of times, wide receivers, the defenders are playing such great defense. Offensive players really like space. A great receiver knows how to make catches in traffic, and they know how to make catches with people on them. And a lot of times they get uncomfortable because of how close, that receiver, that defender's on them. And so, even though the ball is being thrown to the opposite side, he will release. And typically they don't really mean to, but when I see that extension of the arm, that's one of my indicators to look for the level of effect that it's going to have on that defender. And once I have that indicator, if I lose a footing or if there's any level of speed, rhythm, balance, quickness that's kind of thrown off, I can be supported with OPI.
Okay. And that's great how you broke that down. I really like how you broke that down, especially seeing that arm extend of being the initial point of emphasis. So, okay, got something I got to look for here.
Yeah.
Defensively, now, how are you guys with you're seeing that arm kind of wrapped around a little bit as they're trying to reach in, say with their one hand, but their other hand is kind of around the hip. How are you guys looking to call that? Does it have to be a necessary tug or a pull that they're turning the hips on the other player, or just having their hands on them?
When we're coming to pass interference, there are pass interference, offensive pass interference, defensive pass interference, and DH, and even offensive holding. My pass interference calls and my holding calls. Before I throw my flag, I like to put it into a category in my mind. Before I throw my flag, I have the category that I'm going to put it in. And so what you're talking about is the hook and turn play, right? So I have an arm that's on that defender, on that wide receiver from the defender. And so for hook and turns, we always have an indicator. So the indicators, I got that arm around it, right? What I want to know on that indicator is one of the things that I'm watching for is, okay, where is this arm? He's got an arm on him. I'm cool with that. We can all be friendly with an arm on him. But where is that arm? If that arm is around the waist, right? 9 times out of 10, we're talking about football players that are, squatting 600 pounds, deadlifting, 700 pounds. They are very sturdy at the waist. And so I might have an arm around the waist, but it's going to take a great level of effort from that defender to use that in a manner that's going to truly affect the wide receiver. Mm-hmm. So what we're saying is if that arm is around the waist, typically he's not going to affect him that much. I'm not saying that it can't happen. I just want to know where that's just my indicator, right? If that arm is up around the shoulder, you can get a little bit more movement. I can get a little bit more control over that wide receiver. That's where his arms are, obviously, if we all know anatomy. And so it can really have a little bit more of a material effect on that receiver. And so that's when I don't need as much restriction or as much movement from my defender if that arm is up top for me to know that it affected him. And if I see that, then that's my indicator, right? So I'm looking for where's that arm, if we're talking about the hook and turn, where's that arm on the receiver? And then I also have to be able to identify the effect that it had on the receiver.
That awesome job of breaking that down, because a lot of people the layperson just sees that arm wrapped around. So yeah, that's an indicator. All right, let me really focus in on that. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be a flag on that play. And the same thing, even sometimes with the arms extended on the offensive player, did they push off and create space, or was their arm just kind of flailing a little bit? It's the thing to look for, but it's not necessarily the gold standard with it. So you still have to make sure that they have the other parts with it.
Absolutely. You want the big fouls. I want the big things.
Correct.
Murder and mayhem is what my old boss used to call it. Eminem. I want murder and mayhem. That's what my flag comes out for.
Yep. And if I've last checked, it is still a contact sport. It's not flag football still. So there is still going to be a point of contact going on somewhere here and there.
Absolutely.
So Raymond, with that, wrapping it up, one last question that I got to ask you, being in a great conference like you are in with the SEC, some of the best football going on there, what's a cool memory that you have, or what's a cool moment that you have working in these types of games in this atmosphere?
Man, I think, I get one. I think, honestly, I've been fortunate enough to have one almost every year. Right. But I think it's going to come with I have such a level of gratitude of being able to work in the Southeastern Conference because I wanted to be in the SEC. I love college football, and I love college football in the South. I don't think there's nothing like it. Let me leave it at that. So with that being said, it's not that hard for me to leave one of these games feeling in awe. I was fortunate enough to work. I've been fortunate enough to work some really cool games. I think the most recent one probably would have been the LSU Ole Miss game that went a couple different overtimes. It was a night game. Oxford was rocking. LSU had the Heisman Trophy, or the potential Heisman candidate coming into the Ole Miss had the potential Heisman candidate and Jaden Daniels coming in. It was just an offensive shootout, man. It was an offensive exhibition if I could ever have one. And, it was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's great stuff.
Yeah, man. I thoroughly enjoy where I am. I do.
Yeah, you're getting Sunday football on Saturday nights there.
That's a great way to put it. That's a very great way to put it, man. Sunday football on Saturday nights. The atmosphere is second to none. No matter where you go, they all have something special, and that's what you want to take in, right? Like you said, Jordan-Hare is different from, Athens is different from Tuscaloosa, is different from Oxford, right? Different from Starksville. And they all have something that makes their place special. And, we're just lucky to be able to be a part of it. And I couldn't be more grateful no matter where I go on a Saturday.
That's great stuff. That's great stuff. And I'm not going to lie, little touch of jealousy on my end here. Is I'm looking forward to the days that I'm going to experience that again. It's probably going to be from up in the stands, and I'm okay with that. But going on a Southeastern tour of college football games is on my bucket list of things to do. So,
yeah, no doubt, man. Yeah, they have some. Yeah, it's a great thing to do if you have the opportunity.
Now I'm going to leave you with a little bit of a loaded question. Which one's got the best party atmosphere? You don't have to answer that one.
That's a question I don't know the answer to. I want to make sure I put that on record. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know, but
that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Raymond, I would like to thank you once again for taking the time out and joining me tonight on the show, dealing with our little internet issues going on in the beginning of the show. So, but once again, thank you very much. Is there anything else that you want to leave our listeners with? Anything, words of encouragement or words of wisdom?
I'll say thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure and an honor, man. And I'll say, man, to anybody listening, it's enjoy the journey, right? Not everybody, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to work in the SEC. I've been fortunate enough to be chosen to work in the UFL and all that good stuff. But not everybody's going to get that opportunity. And every game that you work is important to somebody, right? So. I know that's very tongue-in-cheek and very cliche, but that is truly, truly like my the way I approach it. You wouldn't believe even where you are at the Division I level, man. Some people don't want to go to the games that they go to. And I'm not saying necessarily in my conference because I think everyone loves it exactly everywhere we go. But I know that just be grateful where you are and keep putting the work in. Opportunities come no matter what. Age is just a number.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Raymond, once again, thank you very much. Much appreciated. And I look forward to seeing you this coming fall on the SEC network and catching some of those games and maybe touching base with you afterwards and picking your brain on some of the things that might be able to see there. Good luck this upcoming weekend too. And again, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to catch him, Raymond's he's in the UFL. So by the time we air this show, it's going to be probably early June, late May, early June is when we're going to publish this show. So hopefully you're in the playoffs at that point in time and getting some championship games with them. And then see you coming Saturday in September. It's going to be here soon.
Awesome, man. I look forward to it, man.
All right. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Whistle Talk, where we unravel the fascinating world of football officiating. If you enjoyed today's discussion and want to stay in the loop with the latest insights, be sure to subscribe to Whistle Talk on your favorite podcast platform. Stay connected with us by following Whistle Talk on social media, where we share behind-the-scenes glimpses, updates, and engage with our incredible community of officiating enthusiasts. Find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Just search for the words Whistle Talk. Your support means the world to the show, and we'd love to hear your thoughts, questions, or suggestions for future episodes. Drop us a line through our website or message me on social media. I'm always eager to connect with the fellow fans and continue the conversation. Until next time, keep blowing the whistle on the untold stories and nuances of football officiating. Thanks for being part of the Whistle Talk family. This is Mike D., the referee, saying so long for now.